Thank you.
Okay, I will call the May 25th meeting of the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals to order. My name is Ken Foreman. I'm the vice chair, and I guess we're waiting for our chair to show up, so
No, she won't be here the first two because she's recused.
She won't be here for the first two, I guess, because she had recused on those anyway, right?
Correct.
And so let me start by introducing the board. Robert Dugan is an associate member of the board. Paul Murphy, voting member of the board. Ed Van Kuren, voting member of the board. T.J. Hurry is our clerk. And to my right is Jerry Patamas, who's an associate member of the board. So the Zoning Board of Appeals, as I'm sure many of you know, is charged with applying the zoning bylaws for the town and considering requests for special permits, variances, and appeals as provided for by our bylaws, which have been approved by town meeting and also by the Attorney General's office for the Commonwealth. Our goal is to hear testimony from applicants and from the public and to allow for full and fair discussion of each project prior to rendering a decision. And so the process will go something like this. To begin with, the clerk will read a public announcement of the hearing and present any pertinent information from the file, such as referrals from town departments. And then the applicant's representative will be granted 15 minutes to make a presentation, and that time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant, and then the public will be invited to comment. All comments should be directed only at the project and comment through the board, refrain from making derogatory statements, of course, and you're free, of course, to offer a opinion either in favor, opposition, or just ask a question. We would like you to come to the podium to speak. The microphone is there to pick up your voice for the TV that's broadcasting, so don't be alarmed if you're not, don't hear yourself amplified in here. Do state your name for the record. After hearing the testimony, the board will make a decision either to close the hearing or to continue the hearing. If we close the hearing, we'll have board discussion and vote. Just one moment. And
I have a problem hearing. Can you speak louder?
Am I not speaking loud enough?
Problem hearing.
Okay. Okay. I thought I was talking pretty loud, but. Just a reminder that we require a supermajority, so a vote of 4 members to pass in favor. So a split vote is failure to carry or results in a denial. Okay. So tonight we have on the agenda.
I don't know what it is.
I have my agenda here somewhere. 2 continuations and 4 new hearings. The first continuations, 100-16 and 101-16, we're going to consider jointly. And we need because Kim our chair has recused herself, one of the associate members needs to serve on this, so I would like to ask Robert Dugan if he'd be willing to serve.
Yep, I'll serve on this.
Okay. And TJ, do we need to read anything into the record for this, or has that already been done?
I believe that's already been done.
Referrals need to be read.
Referrals need to be-
If there's any referrals, I don't remember if there are or not. Thank you, Jerry.
Hold this to your ear. Hold this to your ear. And it's like,
Like this?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's working.
Thank you, Jerry. Didn't know that existed.
That's nifty. Where'd we get that?
I have no idea. Jerry knew it was there.
I guess we have them in here, huh?
We do have a few referrals. From engineering, no comment. From conservation, no comment. From the assessors, 131 land use code, potential buildable, and that's it for referrals.
Okay, and Do we have someone here for the, this is an appeal of a decision of the building commissioner as to buildability.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Edward Kirk, and I'm an attorney with an office in Osterville, and I am representing the two applicants in these two appeals. I wanted to thank Sari and the board for your accommodation in continuing these cases previously, because as the chairman, vice chairman has mentioned, in order to prevail in this action, which is an appeal from a decision of the building commissioner, which is adverse to my clients, we need 4 votes. And on some of these prior occasions, there were only going to be 4 members available, and so we were looking to at least have that some margin of error, 20%. So I appreciate the accommodation until this evening's hearing. I'm representing in the 2 appeals the estate of John Mayette in one appeal, and in the other appeal, a Canadian corporation entitled Cherbourg Hotel Management. The summary of the facts are that between the 2 applicants, they own 10 contiguous lots, each of 10,000 square feet. The plan was originally laid out in 1969, approved by the planning board, at which time these lots of 10,000 square feet each complied with zoning. At the present time, zoning in this district, which is agricultural B, is 40,000 square feet. The way it's set up is that, if you can see on the plan, the lots which have a dot, a red dot, those are lots owned by the estate of John Mayette, and the lots that have a dash in them are owned by Cherbourg Management, Hotel Management Corporation. So as you go down the line, it's Cherbourg and Mayette, Cherbourg and Mayette, etc., for a total of 10 lots. The building commissioner, Eladio Gore, in June of 2014, gave letters to Attorney Moynihan, who was representing the owners at that time, that, in his opinion, each of these lots satisfy the requirements of 240-66C2. And those individual letters of buildability, so-called, are in the file. Mr. Palmer, Mr. Gore's successor, came to the following conclusion, that because John Mayette, the late John Mayette, who owned lots individually in 1981, January 1st, 1981 being the key date, whether they were in common ownership. Because he was also the president of Cherbourg Hotel Management, that the building commissioner concluded that Mr. Mayette, in his individual capacity and as president of the corporation, controlled all these lots. And it's our contention and our argument that, as a matter of law, the building commissioner is incorrect. The bylaw does not speak, first of all, about control. Your bylaw has historically been what is referred to in the courts as an indulgent bylaw. 40A Section 6 sets out the statute, the general laws for providing protection for undersized lots. But as you all know, each municipality is free to expand on those rights, and as each town sees fit through its legislation, to provide greater protection. And the Falmouth zoning bylaw is very detailed and specific. And there's always been a historic recognition that we have older lots, undersized lots here in the town of Falmouth, which don't always get built upon, but sometimes are held for the long haul. And the bylaw is designed to protect those, provided they comply with certain minimum standards. Now, in this case, it's AGB, and the standard is 10,000 square feet. And well, if they were in separate ownership or not in common ownership on January 1st, 1981. And as I say, in January 1st, 1981, each lot was in a separate ownership. Historically, I believe that the board has not gone below the record or outside the record to look for other documents that suggest that there's control. My understanding of the way this board has viewed this bylaw has been that there has to be some actual evidence, some action taken by owners that indicate they intend to merge, such as the recording of a plan that combines lots, or the use of a lot by an adjoining owner as an accessory to a principal use, or the drafting of deeds whereby lots are conveyed, let's say by perimeter, and not individual lots shown on a plan, or by referencing the total area as the amount being conveyed. Those kinds of things would suggest an intention to merge. We don't have that in this case. We obviously have a very clear intent to keep them separate. There's an affidavit from an attorney practicing law in Quebec who is familiar with Canadian law, and he's familiar with the background of this particular corporation. And he states that in order for the corporation to act with respect to real estate, both directors, there have to be two directors first of all, and they both have to act. In the absence of unanimity between those two directors, a president of a corporation cannot act. And he states very clearly that in this case there were two directors. Mr. Mayette was one. Another gentleman served as a co-director. And in the absence of unanimity between those two directors, the president cannot act. That is consistent with Massachusetts law as well. On page 4 of our memorandum, I reference a case called Beaupre versus Cliff Smith and Associates. And the statement in that case is, a corporation is a viable legal person, separate and distinct from its shareholders, officers, and employees, possessing virtually all the legal attributes of a natural person, including the capacity to make employment contracts and to sue and be sued, and to be held both civilly and criminally responsible, including as an aider and abettor for actionable wrongs, etc. In the case of Griswold versus the U.S., it states, an officer of a corporation is subject to control by stockholders and directors, and he is not an owner of corporate property. And that's where I think the building commissioner is incorrect. He's very competent with respect to zoning, but I think he wandered here into a legal field, and he comes to a conclusion which is incorrect. The president of a corporation does not own or control the property. So we believe that the building commissioner was incorrect. The other point I would like to make is that there are really no, what I call zoning values at stake here. There's all of these lots. You can see, I've made a notation, there are 58 single-family lots shown on that plan with houses on them. The entire area is already developed in accordance with plans developed around the time that this plan was. There are no 40,000 square foot lots in this area, and there are not going to be any 40,000 square foot lots in this area. Point out, this is the extension of Broken Bow Lane as it appears on the subdivision plan. This second rendering shows what the consequence of this decision would be if it's not overturned and if we're not successful. Given the fact that there's 10 lots, 10,000 square feet each, that's 100,000 square feet. The district requires 40,000. The most you could do here is to create 2 new lots if Cherbourg and Mayette got together and merged these lots. A football field is from end zone to end zone, outside the end zone to the other end zone, is 360 feet. These lots, each of them would be 375 feet in length. That would be the so-called frontage. A football field is 160 feet wide. These lots are about 125 feet each deep. So if you're sitting on the 50-yard line and you're looking at a football field, you're looking at one lot if this decision were to stand and be implemented. And so I suggest there's really no zoning values at stake here for the town of Falmouth. And the building commissioner has, the basis on which he's made his decision is incorrect, and I think the law backs us up on that. So, in conclusion, what we're asking for is that in each of these cases that decision be annulled and that the position taken by Mr. Gore is the correct one, and that these lots are, each and every one of them, buildable because they were in separate ownership on January 1st, 1981. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board for Attorney Kirk?
I'll have one.
Okay.
Traditionally, when you see a dash and dot, that's classic intent or possible intent for checkerboarding. In my view, would you think, from your experience, that that could be an indication of checkerboarding?
Which?
The 10 lots in question, you have one entity has a dash, the other entity has a dot, dash, dot, different owners.
That's just I put that on there to identify which lots are which.
But the dashes are owned by the corporation?
Yes, the dash, the lots on which I place the dash is owned by Cherbourg Management Corporation.
And the dots are owned by?
Now the estate of John Mayette.
And who are the trustees in that estate?
Stephen Mayette is the executor of the.
And who are the grantors of that trustee?
It's just an estate.
Well, it was a trust, wasn't it?
I don't believe so. I think though these lots have always been owned individually by the ones with the dot.
Okay.
Were owned individually by John, the late John Mayette.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
Do I have any questions? Did the town attorney, was the town attorney ever consulted on this particular issue? I'm just curious. I didn't see anything. And how about, did the building commissioner, either one
I don't know who he sought. I think he did seek counsel, but I don't know.
Okay, but-
He did not supply us with any referral or
Okay.
reason.
Was the president of the corporation a shareholder?
I don't know for sure, but he was a director,
Okay.
one of 2 directors.
Okay. No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I leave that for the board?
Yep, yep.
TJ.
If there's nothing else, TJ, you had something?
It's just looking over. I was going to ask something about the shareholders, but Paul already covered that.
Well, I mean, is this information that we ought to have that we don't have in the record? I mean, it's got to be accessible somewhere. We could ask Attorney Kirk for it.
We could. I was also interested in the purpose of the conveyancing, the way that they did it, just to kind of piggyback off of what Jerry said. Just the way that the lots were conveyed,
What
how it
was,
seems to be every other lot. If Attorney Kirk has any knowledge to that.
I can tell you when the conveyances occurred. I don't think there's, I wouldn't stand here and suggest that the purpose was anything other than to put these lots into separate ownership. And in 1976, the original developer conveyed to Rosemary DeVillis and also the even-numbered lots and also the odd-numbered lots to a Victor Diagazio. They were conveyed to the odd-numbered lots went to Cherbourg in July of 1980, and the even-numbered lots were conveyed to John Mayette in November of 1980. That information is in the little statement of facts that precedes our argument.
Is there any family relation to either DeVillis or Diagazio to either Mr. Mayette or anyone related to Shoreburg Hotel Management?
No.
And not the original developer either?
Cosmo DeVillis, I think, was the original. It was his plan.
Okay. And he conveyed to Rosemary DeVillis?
Yes. That was at a time when there was still a zoning freeze in effect. There was a 7-year plan freeze. And while that freeze was still in effect, these first conveyances went out from the original developer. And then from those individuals in 1980 to Cherbourg and to Mr. Mayette.
And Shoreburg Hotel Management Group, is that a registered foreign corporation with the Massachusetts Secretary of State's office?
That's a good question. I don't know if I looked at that or if I have that information for you. But I don't think that would disqualify them from holding real estate, even if they're not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, but the question about stock ownership, particularly if Mr. Mayette had a majority interest, might be relevant.
Okay.
So it would be nice to know that.
All right. I will get that information.
Excuse me.
for you. I'll see if I can get that information for you.
Okay.
I don't have it right here.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Suri?
was John Mayette president of Cherbourg at the time of 1980, when Cherbourg bought those lots? And then,
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
so Cherbourg bought every other lot.
Yes,
In July of 1980, Mayette was president of Cherbourg.
right.
And then in November of 1980, Mayette was conveyed those other lots.
That's correct. That's correct.
And who in 1980 was also on the board of Cherbourg
That was Robin Givens was the other director.
at the same time
Yes.
in 1980? Okay.
Yeah, or at least I know in 1981, that's what Mr. Rivard's affidavit says.
Okay.
That he was, let me see if I have that name,
Yes, it's in there.
Um,
You have it on page 3 or 4, I believe.
Robin Connors, I'm sorry.
Right.
Robin Givens is an actress.
That's what I thought. I thought it was a remarkable
Getting my venues mixed up here. Yeah, Robin Connors.
Right.
Yeah, I used to be married to Mike Tyson.
Very
A
good.
little
A delightful
irrelevant
experience, I'm
fact.
sure.
Okay, questions from the public?
I
Oh,
have
wait a
another
minute.
Oh, yeah, another
Gary
one?
had-
Would it be appropriate for the board to ask town council to weigh in on the legal opinion? I'm asking Surya, and that usually he
Well,
wouldn't
this is
weigh.
nice timing.
Well, I mean, obviously, he's coming back with more
We
information.
may continue anyway, because we've asked him to give us some information on that.
Well,
I will
if the other
find out,
board
I will
members-
find out if he already counseled the building commissioner, because at that point,
Yeah,
I believe Robert had a question as well.
Robert?
Yeah, does the corporation own any other property in the town?
Not that I'm aware of.
When they did the conveyances, was there a monetary amount with the conveyances to the corporation?
Originally, there were mortgages given when the corporation, to the owner, yeah, so they were paid for when they were acquired by Mr. Mayette and Cherbourg respectively in 1980.
And what was
Separately.
the interest of the corporation in this specific site for these lots versus other areas of town?
I don't have an answer to that. Vacant lots, you know, some value there.
So Mayette
all
and
right.
Cherbourg paid separate checks. When the lots were conveyed to Mayette, those checks came from him, and when they were conveyed to Cherbourg, they came from Cherbourg.
I don't have the conveyancing documents. The record at the registry suggests that it was a seller-financed transfer.
So those mortgages would probably be in the registry, correct?
Oh, yes. That's what the building commissioner is hanging his hat on. For some reason, he decided to look something up at the registry of deeds and came across the fact that,
Could we have those submitted to the file?
sure.
All right,
But that's the basis of his
right.
decision.
But
He said, well,
we didn't get anything from him, so,
yeah. You know, he said, I see John Mayette is the owner of this lot. I see Cherbourg is the owner of the next lot. I see John Mayette is the president. Therefore, John Mayette, as president, you know, he controls
well,
one
I
or
think
the
it's
other.
important to see who did the financing, who paid, if Mayette paid for his own lots, Cherbourg paid for their own lots. I think that's important
Yeah,
to see. It should be in the deed, right?
Okay, so we
Well,
have
yeah,
some.
the deed will recite whatever it recites, but and I'll certainly provide the deed.
Okay.
So we want the mortgage documents, we want to know something about the proportional ownership of Cherbourg. Anything else that the board wants? Oh, legal counsel.
I'll find out if he's counseled him. If not, ask his opinion.
And then let's see if,
Or ask for the opinion he gave.
at this point, are we ready for, if there's any public comment? Okay. Let's see if there's any
Thank you.
public comment. Is there anyone here that has a question about this appeal? Okay, there's no public comment. Then I think we're at the point where we want to move to continue this.
Take a motion to continue.
Let's, Ed, shall we discuss dates? So, and this for all 5 members as well? How long do you think it'll take you to get the information, Ed?
It shouldn't take any time to get the mortgage and the deeds. Those are readily available. I'm not sure about stockholder information. Might have to go back to Old Canada and Mr. Rivard.
Wow. How much time do you think you need, Ed?
When is your next?
Well, I was thinking it's either going to be, we could do it Monday, June 5th, right after Falmouth Hospitality, or July 20th.
Let's see if we can do it by the 5th.
Is that okay with the board as well?
And if I'm not, I'll let you know, but
Okay.
we'll shoot for the 5th.
Okay?
That's a Monday.
That is a Monday, Ed.
Oh, I
Sorry.
see, yeah.
And it'll be down in the civil defense room. I know it's unusual, but
Yeah.
Could you let me know what's happening here?
Monday, June 5th.
Yes.
In the civil defense room. We happen to have another hearing continued to that night.
Oh,
So it's either that night or July 20th.
I see. So it's a Monday downstairs.
Right.
Uh,
Which is just out of the ordinary for this
Okay.
board because of that hearing.
Okay, so we'll try for that. And if,
That's in like 10 days.
yeah, and if we can't, I'll let you know. But I'll try.
Okay, so we have a motion from Ed to continue 6:30, I guess, here in Town Hall, Monday, June 5th.
In the civil defense
In
room
the civil defense room.
at
Do we have a
6:30.
second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Robert seconds. Ed, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and me as well. So we'll see you then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ed.
Now, we're still waiting for Kim. Oh, good.
Ed, your board.
Should we take a 1-minute recess to
Oh, you want
change
to, you want to
chairs?
submit it to the file?
1-minute recess to change chairs. A 1-minute break.
Oh, it went a little longer than a minute.
Yeah, sorry.
Good evening, welcome back to the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. I have come now, so my name's Kimberly Beelan, I'm the chairman of the board, and Paul, I believe, left for the evening.
You do.
So those are the changes.
So you're going to have to remember to pick an associate for each hearing.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
So we'll take the first one, it's application 2417, Karen 8 Brockton Street T-ticket, and TJ will read the referral.
Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws, you are hereby notified that C. Daniel Herron and Mary G. Herron of Nashville, Tennessee, applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240-3C of the Code of Falmouth to construct a second-floor addition creating habitable space within the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling on subject property known as 8 Brockton Street in T-Ticket, Massachusetts. And for referrals from engineering is the standard comment. They also recommend adding dry wells, rain garden, or other stormwater measure for the roof because the front yard appears to drain towards Brockton Street, which drains towards Little Pond. From the fire department, no comment. From the assessors, it includes lots 49, 50, and 51. From planning, no comment. And that is it for referrals.
Okay, great.
Who is the fifth member?
Oh, sorry. So it'll be the regular voting members and, I wrote down, Robert on this one. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower, and I'm an attorney here in Falmouth. I represent Dan and Mary Herron, the owners of 8 Brockton Street, and the applicants in this matter. This application concerns the property known as 8 Brockton Street, which is located off of Mara Vista Avenue, near the shores of Little Pond. It is on a lot of 7,200 square feet in the RC zoning district. The current dwelling is a one-story dwelling with a footprint of approximately 1,411 square feet and height of approximately 17 feet. It's non-conforming as to front yard setback being 5.1 feet where 25 feet is required, and lot coverage being 21% where 20% is allowed by right and up to 25% is allowed by special permit. It is otherwise conforming to the rear and side yard setbacks. The applicants in this matter are seeking to renovate the first floor and to add a second story. The second story will include a master suite, a sitting area, and an outdoor deck. The result of this is no expansion of the footprint. They'll be working entirely within the existing footprint. There'll actually be a reduction of lot coverage. They'll be removing the shed in the backyard, which will bring the lot coverage from 21% to slightly over 19%. And they'll be adding additional living space, making the home in general more useful for them and their families. The front yard setback will remain unaffected at 5.1 feet. Due to the existing nonconformities, we do require a special permit under section 240-3C, under which a pre-existing non-conforming structure may be changed or altered, provided that the resulting structure is not substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. In considering this, the board is asked to look at the standards of 240-216 and whether or not the alteration creates a new dimensional nonconformity, impairs views of vistas, and reasonably conforms to the average in the neighborhood. In this case, the front yard setback remains unaffected, as I've mentioned. The addition of the second story is very much in line with other homes in the area. There's no detriments of this proposal relative to the existing structure. There's no real adverse effects. There's no new nonconformity being created or eliminating an existing nonconformity. There's no public view of vista being impaired, and this project meets the standards of 240-216. It's a relatively straightforward application, but based on this information, I'd ask that you grant this request for a special permit. I'd be glad to address any questions you may have at this time.
Okay. Jerry, do you have any questions?
Is this property within the sewer service area for Little
It is. Yep.
So that they could tie in and could expand by right up to 4 bedrooms?
That's not the intent, right?
No,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, but they're keeping it at the existing 3-bedroom level.
you have an unfinished basement that's...
And the unfinished basement will remain unfinished.
Okay.
Any other questions, Jerry?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ken?
No, it was very clearly laid out by Attorney Flower in his letter.
Okay. TJ?
Attorney Clower, could you address the engineering comment regarding the stormwater runoff?
We'd be happy to add dry wells as needed. In the past, the board has conditioned, dry wells as necessary on the site, subject to the engineer's determination. We'd be happy to include that determination in this.
Sure. And did you obtain a letter from the structural engineer verifying that the structure could withstand the second floor addition?
Hot off the press.
All right.
Issued the 23rd and picked up today by the architect. It does, I'm happy to submit this, but he does state that based on his review of the plans and the photographs of the existing conditions, that he feels that the structure can support the proposed addition. In addition, I mean, this is obviously subject to the issuance of a building permit. And, I don't think the applicants have any real desire to put a second story on a structure that's going to crumble out from underneath them. So I think there's a vested interest in making sure that the foundation's strong enough. But I'd be happy to submit this letter.
Thank you.
Thanks, TJ.
That was my only question, was the structural part.
Okay. Robert?
How much of the property is located in the velocity zone?
There is a portion of the property located in the velocity zone. And it is, this line here is the velocity zone. Of the addition, the only area that's going to be within the velocity zone is 191 square feet, which is underneath the threshold for substantial improvement underneath our bylaw.
And where are the mechanicals located? Are they having to move the mechanicals out of the basement?
Well,
Are they in the basement
they're
now,
not required,
or-
they're not, I don't know the answer to the question, for one, but because it's not a substantial improvement, they're not required to bring the house into compliance with flood zone standards. Now, whether or not they should is a completely different question for their own purposes, but I don't know the answer to that question. I believe they are in the basement.
That's all I have.
So let me just follow up, and substantial improvement, so you would just look at the part that's in the flood zone? So even though you're, say, adding a second story to the entire house?
So I spoke with Commissioner Palmer about this, and he did feel that this would not constitute a substantial improvement.
Okay. For that reason that you
Yep.
articulate? Okay.
The way our bylaw is written, and we've, I think, been over this with some other cases in the past, but the way the bylaw is written, it really talks about the substantial improvement within the velocity zone, not to say that any portion of which is in the velocity zone.
Okay. And then just to confirm, so the foundation right now, it's shown on the plan, is 11.2 feet back. You're building right on top of that foundation?
There's no change to the footprint.
So the steps then will remain in their existing location? They're the only thing that will be 5.1 feet from?
Correct.
Okay. Just going through my notes, 1 second. Okay. Sri?
Yeah, you have a balcony on the second floor that doesn't show on the plan, number one. But number two, what is the size of that balcony?
So are you referring to the balcony that's going to be,
On the second floor that's not showing, which is on the west side of the house.
right over here? So that will be, that is shown on the proposed architectural. And
So-
that is not counted towards the gross floor area?
It's shown on the architecturals, but it's not shown on the plan,
Because the
right?
plan's just footprint. It's on the existing
Oh,
footprint.
well, the patio, the stairs look totally different on the architecturals than they do. So, in the eve of the hangover of the architecture, so it's a little confusing, I guess.
That's it. It's on there.
So you're saying that the balcony is showing.
The balcony is within the existing footprint. It's staying within the existing footprint. There's nothing stepping off of this. So,
What's the size of the balcony?
I don't know the exact square footage of it.
Do you see the balcony shown on the site plan?
It's within footprint, so it's all going to be within this block.
So it's above a portion of the first level.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because that's-
This dash line is essentially the balcony.
That's why the stairs look totally different. I apologize. So those stairs are being added, and that's a patio.
Yes.
And no changes to the front entrance at all.
Correct.
My apologies, I misread that. I see where it's over the living room.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak in favor of this? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay. All right, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, so how would you guys like to proceed?
I could move that we close the hearing.
Second.
Okay, so that's Ken and Ed, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then how would you like to move forward?
I would make a motion in favor of approving this proposal.
Second.
Okay, so that's Ken and then Ed, findings and conditions.
Okay, findings are no increase in setback nonconformities, an actual reduction in lot coverage by the removal of the shed. Height of the building is, on the plan, is 27 feet at the ridge, so well within our height limit.
No increase in bedrooms?
No increase in bedrooms, thank you, Jerry.
Yeah.
3 bedrooms. And this increases the usability of the house,
Yeah.
utility of the house, so
Enhances.
Fit in with the neighborhood.
enhances.
Enhances.
Yeah.
What about amenable to dry wells?
Yes, that's what I was just going to say.
Amenable to dry wells, and no increase in the footprint. I mean, that's the key.
Right, yeah, that
That's the
is a key
thing.
finding. And I think we should also make a finding regarding substantial improvement, in that calculation only takes into the square footage in the velocity zone.
Of less than 200 feet?
Yes, yep. And that the remaining, only a portion, we can play around with it, but only a portion of the addition is in the velocity zone and doesn't qualify as substantial improvement.
As shown on the plan.
Also, did we make a finding that the basement will remain unfinished? Do we need to, if we have the number of bedrooms already?
Well,
It's in the-
I wouldn't limit them
Okay.
to just that no bedrooms in the basement.
Right, okay.
You don't want to limit them if they want to.
And then 240, 216.
Could I ask if you're only proposing 3 bedrooms, why would we say no bedrooms in the basement?
Because it's not supposed to have any bedrooms in the basement.
Why not?
Doesn't meet code.
No, just as,
Yeah, it probably doesn't meet,
if it's a code, then.
although they have bulkhead.
They have a
You can exit via the
bulkhead,
bulkhead.
But
on the
even then, we
elevations,
condition
there's
it-
no windows
Oh,
for a
okay, all right,
basement. There's
doesn't
no
meet
proper,
the definition of a bedroom.
Well, and we condition it per plans, and their plans show 3 bedrooms.
Right.
you always
they would
play it
need
safe by
to-
saying no bedrooms.
Right.
There's no,
Right.
I mean, there's a bulkhead, but I don't see any other proper egress. It's
Right.
not a below-grade back type of thing.
Yeah.
So we always do that. But it's up to the board.
No,
And so, do we want to make any other findings? Do we want to make a finding that's in the sewer service area?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it for
We
findings.
didn't ask when
Yep.
it's going to be hooked up, though, did we?
No.
But I don't think it's right now. I think it's in the near future, the fall, maybe? Is that it?
They can start tying in now. They'll have a
Okay.
year for it.
Okay, and then conditions
Building
as
could
per
run.
per
plans.
plans.
Dry wells.
Yes, we have that condition language that we've been using as to what's, like the number, what an engineer deems sufficient, or.
Well, we've never relied on the town engineers.
No, not the town engineer, the, like the
Oh,
on-site.
Michael.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think
Dry
we've
wells
just used language
as
like that.
appropriate by
Yes.
project engineer.
Yes.
And shall we condition 3 bedrooms?
Yes. And no shed.
Yeah, they're removing the shed in the shower.
No shed, removal of the shed, that's right.
In the shower.
Not to be
No,
relocated.
shower.
Well, the shower doesn't matter. Do you want to limit it to 3 bedrooms when they have the capability to go to 4?
Well, look, if they have to, if they want to make any change, they have to come back anyway, so why not? Right?
Yes. I
It's a special
concur.
permit.
Yeah.
Okay, I just asked.
I concur. So is that it? I think so.
I think so.
So it was Ken's motion to approve. Ed, you seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that's unanimous.
Same ones.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Kimberly,
Yes.
you got to put some, he has to recuse from,
Yes, I did it out already.
Thank you.
Taking that into consideration. So the next item on the agenda is application 2717. This is 34 Tupelo Road.
Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws, you are hereby notified that Pamela R. Floyer, trustee of Newton, Massachusetts, applied to Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240-3C and 240-68D of the Code of Falmouth to raise a portion of the pre-existing non-conforming dwelling and garage and reconstruct in a different configuration on subject property known as 34 Tupelo Road, West Falmouth, Massachusetts. And for our referrals, engineering is the standard comment with the addition that it appears that the project includes dry wells for the roof, a change from impervious to pervious driveway surface for a portion of the driveway, and a leaching basin for the driveway. They do not recommend the use of trench drains. They tend to clog quickly and no longer work as intended. Beehive frame and grate over a solid structure is recommended. From historical, not in a historical commission district. From the assessors, it includes lots 149A, 150A, and 221. From the fire department, no comment. From planning, no comment.
Good evening. For the record,
I'm sorry, I should also mention that there's a memo from Conservation dated May 22nd. Applicant filed notice of intent through Concom. Hearing was open on May 3rd and then continued to June 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.
good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi, engineer in town, working for Holmes & McGrath and representing the applicant, which is 34 Tupelo Road Realty Trust. With us tonight is also one of the owners, Mr. Mark Pines, and the architect, Beatrice Bunkers. I will first hand out a little graphic color that I will be talking about a little later on.
Oh, and just for the record, Jerry will be the associate member voting on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So the first graphic I'm showing right here is the existing condition. The house has been developed since 1978. It's a single-family residence. Back in 1978, the regulation of setbacks to the waters of Buzzards Bay to be a minimum of 50 feet did not exist. 4 years after, in 1983, that regulation became new for the zoning code, which requires all principal structures excuse me, to be set back 50 feet from the waters of Buzzards Bay. The waters of Buzzards Bay are defined as elevation 4 on NGVD 1929. Currently, the house sits approximately 42 feet at the closest point to that elevation 4. That closest point is a little bump out on the garage. The main portion of the residence, which is this square over here, this rectangle over here, is approximately 43 from the same elevation 4. The existing deck is located 30 feet from the waters of Buzzards Bay. This is the setback that makes this existing residence non-conforming to today's standards. The applicant is proposing to do some modifications and improvements to the property. The main portion of the house is to remain. However, they're going to remove the portion that connects the main house to the garage, remove the garage, and remove the deck. So the proposed project or the proposed structure will look something this way. The intended work will actually improve on those setbacks except for the main portion of the house, which will still continue to have the same setbacks as before. The proposed deck is proposed to be now at 33 feet from the waters of Buzzards Bay, so that's an improvement of 3 feet. It is done so by shifting it northward and also making it narrower at 8 foot wide. There's a proposed new screen porch addition that's not existing, but that proposed addition conforms to the 50-foot setback to the waters of Buzzards Bay. The proposed relocation of the garage also conforms to the 50-foot setback to Buzzards Bay. The connection between the existing house and the proposed garage is going to be within the footprint of the existing garage and connection, but more than the 42 feet of the existing structure. Some of the improvements that are proposed in addition to remodeling and upgrading the structure are roof dry wells. Currently, there is roof downspouts that have direct discharge daylight onto the bank. There's also a drain from the driveway right in front of the garage that daylights out to the bank. We're proposing the roof runoff to be collected and discharged into dry wells. We're also proposing to remove the impervious driveway from this whole section that is dotted, is shown as dots on the plan, to be pervious. And we're proposing to collect all the runoff at this location and sending it to a leaching pit. This is the lowest location, but it is also the closest location to the coastal bank. That is the reason why we chose a trench drain. A trench drain doesn't have to be excavated too deep into the ground. It's approximately 1.5 foot trench. The structure is put in, and it's easier for maintenance for single-family residences. Some of the other improvements are, although the existing house was proposed in built in 1978 as a 2-bedroom dwelling, we're keeping the 2-bedroom dwelling. The existing septic system is, even though it's a 3-bedroom septic system, it's only permitted for the 2-bedroom dwelling. There is no proposed increase in number of bedrooms. However, the applicant is putting some composting toilets as part of the benefits to the site. This is some of the benefits that we've introduced in the first hearing at Conservation. The reason for the continuance at Conservation has to do with the proposed plantings and proposed trees and what's going to happen with the improvements to the plants on the property. None of the revisions that will be forthcoming for Conservation have to do with the size of the house, the shape of the house, or the setbacks of the structure to the resources. We believe that this conforms to the regulations. It's not more detrimental to the neighborhood. We're not increasing the nonconformities, and we're not creating any new nonconformities with this project. I know there is a referral from engineering as to recommending the use of a solid structure with a beehive grade. We respectfully ask the board not to condition this project on that. If we were to install a structure this close to the coastal bank, it would be a major excavation. It's also a deeper structure, makes it difficult for homeowners to actually maintain it, as they have to remove a grade that's probably weighing more than 100 pounds. When it's a trench grade, it's a smaller grade that they have to remove. It's only about a foot deep, and it can be, any sediments that get in there could be scooped out by hand. If it's a big structure typical of roads and parking lots, it's a deeper structure, and a homeowner himself cannot really maintain it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Jerry?
The composting trailer has to be approved by the Board of Health, correct?
That is correct.
And you said there's no, although the septic tank would take 3 bedrooms, you're only proposing no increase.
That's correct.
Is that all, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay. Ken?
Actually, I don't have any questions on this one either at the moment.
Okay. TJ?
Although that engineering does recommend the beehive drain, like you said, you believe that the trench drain, all the proper calculations have been done that the stormwater runoff will be contained on property and the trench drain will be able to handle all that?
We did. Even though we're converting from an impervious pavement to a pervious pavement, the calculations were done as if it's impervious. So we are confident with that.
Thank you.
That's all you had, TJ?
I don't have any questions.
No questions?
Sorry?
No, I don't. Nice plan.
Let me see if I can find a question. I don't think I really do either.
Oh, what's the height?
The height.
Oh, what's the height of the structure?
There we go.
Yes, the application has the proposed and existing elevations. The existing house that's proposed to remain is going to be remodeled inside. The outside is not going to change, so we're keeping that existing height. And we're not going any higher than the existing one. The elevations show that it is going to be 25.5 feet.
Okay. All right. I think that's everything then. Let me see if anybody from the public, is anybody here to speak in favor of this? Is anybody here to, oh, yes. If you could just come and provide your name.
My name is Beatrice Bunker, I'm the architect. I actually just want to clarify, the roof is going to be a little steeper, but it's not, the dimension on the drawing is the new roof. We're actually taking the roof rafters off, just so you're not thinking we're not following our application. But we're still well within the 35,000.
Okay.
You're talking the existing, you're changing the roof
existing main
rafters?
building has a roof pitch of 10 to 12. We're increasing it to 12 to 12.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So what does that bring the final height to?
To what it's on the drawings.
I think it's
The
a-
height on the drawing was already based on the steeper roof.
That's what I'm looking for.
I think it's this, it's 25.5.
25.5 feet, yes. That's the new roof.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Is anyone else here to speak in favor of this? Is anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, all right, thank you, Roland. How would you like to proceed? I think we probably have enough information to close.
Yeah.
I'll move that if you
Okay.
need a motion.
I do.
Second it.
So that's Ken and Ed, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and then, how would you like to move forward?
I don't have any questions. I think they did a good job.
Yeah, and a lot of kind of nice features, like the pervious paving and the composting toilet. I think that's obviously sensitive to the area, which is nice to see.
As well as the trench drain.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a
Grant?
motion to approve.
I can second.
Okay, so that's Ed and then Ken. So findings and conditions. So finding that the only nonconformity is the setback to the coastal bank waters, the Buzzards Bay, whatever it is.
And it's improving.
And it's improving from 30 to 33.
4-foot contour.
Yes, and the house is staying where it is. So, and no new nonconformities. Finding that they're well under lot coverage, and they're actually decreasing total lot coverage too, by using that pervious pavement.
So you want to make a finding that it's improving from impervious to pervious in a sensitive area?
So
Yes.
total lot coverage goes from 7.5 to
5.
7.2%.
Yes.
And lot coverage by the house, I guess, is 3.8 to 4.4, so both well within.
Yes. I would have a finding about the trench drain.
That we find it's adequate.
Yes. And that's more usable or easier for the homeowner to testimony that
Maintain.
that's, yeah, to maintain.
That's important.
Height to remain the same at 25.5 feet,
It's going to be increased
or
slightly.
increase, slight increase, but still under the max. Finding that they're installing dry wells, two bedrooms remaining, 2 bedrooms.
Right, that's significant.
No increase in bedrooms.
No increase, yep. Do we need anything about Concom, Suri? That
You
hearing
can just say the
pending?
testimony was they continued the hearing for mitigation planning.
Sure.
And then the composting toilet.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Any other findings? 24216?
Right. Okay.
And then conditions
Doesn't like the drawings.
per plans. Do you think we need an as-built plan?
Why?
I don't know. I just wrote it down.
It's only 4% lot coverage.
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
no big
And their
setback
setbacks
issues.
are
or-
fine. They're not
yeah.
going to, they're
I
not going to be.
I don't think we need that. I do think we need something
Yeah.
that says subject to the...
They're improving from 30
To
to
30, yeah,
43,
okay.
42 feet.
Right. I
to
think
the
we need
contour.
something that says subject to the decisions of the Conservation Commission, obviously.
I'm sorry?
Subject to whatever the requirements of CONSCOM are, right? Don't we usually put something in like that?
Not all the time, if
Well,
you'd like to.
this is a sensitive area, I do think. we
Okay,
should-
so the board is adopting the order of conditions issued by the Conservation Commission?
Correct.
Yes.
If we adopt the order of conditions, are we responsible for enforcing it as well?
No.
If
We're
the
not
Concom-
enforceable anyway. Is that it? Anything else?
2 bedrooms? Condition, remain 2 bedrooms,
Okay,
right?
it's up to you.
Right?
Again, you know, if they make changes, they're gonna come back. If they wanna add a third
Yeah, we have
bedroom.
that, any deviation or alteration, it's up to you, but they have a 3-bedroom septic and a composting toilet. Do
But
they
didn't
have
you
a
say it
garbage
wasn't
disposal?
approved for, that there's a 3-bedroom septic, but something, well, did you say something about, that's not?
Oh,
off?
DCPC? Because it's in the DCPC?
The original permit from '79 was for a 2-bedroom. In today's Board of Health and DEP regulations, they cannot have a 3rd bedroom.
So 2 bedrooms.
So 2 bedrooms.
DCPC. Do you want to make a finding that the plan shows that it's in the DCPC? I think that's probably important.
Sure.
So that's a good reason for them to have the composting toilets.
Okay, so is
Plus they'll have a
that
good garden.
everything?
I think so.
Okay, so that was Ed's motion to grant, Ken seconded it, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? None, so that is unanimous.
TJ, you put one of these in the file, right?
Already did.
Thank you.
He's here for CLSD. It's usually Jody Shaw.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, not to rush TJ, will be application 2917, CLSV Associates Limited Partnership for 0 and 30 Moraine Ridge Road. Oh, and sitting on this will be the regular
There's no
voting
testimony
members.
tonight.
Oh, there's not?
No.
No.
Oh,
So he can read it and then read the
Sorry.
request.
no, it's all right, I'm just catching up with that now.
Yeah, that's why I noticed nobody's here.
There is a
Roll it.
request to continue this application from tonight to June 15th.
But you do have to read it into the record to open it.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry,
No, that's all right.
don't mean to confuse you.
Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws, you are hereby notified that CLSV Associates Limited Partnership of North Falmouth, Massachusetts, applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a modification of existing variances pursuant to Section 240-204 of the Code of Falmouth regarding a shared driveway on subject properties known as 0 Moraine Ridge Road and 30 Moraine Ridge Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts. And now I can say that there's a request to continue the application from tonight to June 15th.
Okay, so is there a motion to that effect?
Make a motion to postpone it to June 15th.
Continue
Continue.
at 6:30 here at Town
Yes.
Hall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so that is Ed and TJ, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that's unanimous.
Okay, Raoul.
It's just challenging, it's the driveway to the,
Shall we move along?
Yes,
Okay, so the next,
unless you wanted to take a break.
I implied, I didn't know if anybody else wanted a break, but you guys good? Okay, so
we
application
could
number
power through.
2517, Bogosian Development LLC, 587 Main Street, 17 and 19 Nye Road, Falmouth. Robert's not sitting on this, so Jerry will be sitting.
He needs to recuse himself.
Oh.
Oh, he's not, no, he's
Oh.
not, yeah. You should recuse yourself.
Thank you. All
You're
right.
recused.
So TJ will read it into the record.
Being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws, you are hereby notified that Bogosian Development LLC of Falmouth, Massachusetts applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240-240G1B of the Code of Falmouth to construct a 2.5-story building with commercial space on ground level and 3 residential units on the upper levels while maintaining the existing single-family dwellings on properties to be merged that will create a 29,605 square foot lot. The subject properties are 587 Main Street, 17 Nye Road, and 19 Nye Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts. And for referrals from engineering is the standard comment with the addition that project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, butters, or rights of way. See additional comments. Reviewed the planning board under site plan review, parking requirements and requested reduction approval and off-street loading zone requirement relief approval. They also have concerns about the stormwater discharge to the town drainage system in Main Street. And they'll also require more detail regarding the driveway permit application. There's also the planning board review in the file. From Falmouth Fire Rescue Department, there is a correspondence dated May 1st. And says, per the Massachusetts Building Code, the building will require to have an automatic fire sprinkler system and an automatic fire detection system, both of which were required to be monitored either by the municipal fire alarm system or a central station monitoring company. Also require a Knox box entry system to be installed for emergency after-hours access to the building. Locations of fire hydrants and apparatus turning radii have been approved during site plan review. From the assessors, no comment. From planning, was before the planning board on April 25th, 17 for site plan review. There's one letter of support in the file along with 2 letters of comments.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Clower?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower, and I'm an attorney here in Falmouth. I represent Prigozhin Development LLC, the owners of the properties at 587 Main Street, 17 Nye Road, and 19 Nye Road. I'm joined this evening by Mark Prigozhin of Prigozhin Development, as well as Matt Costa of Cape and Islands Engineering. These properties are located at the corner of Nye Road and Main Street. Combined, their square footage of 29,605 square feet. Pending the outcome of this application, the intent is to merge the 3 lots. For the sake of convenience this evening, I'll refer to these lots as one single lot for the hearing. It is a split zone lot, the portion closest to Main Street being the Business Redevelopment District, and the rear portion being in the Business 2 District. The applicant's proposing a mixed-use building at the front, closest to Main Street, within the BR District. This would consist of 3 commercial units on the ground level and 3 residential units on the upper levels. He intends to keep the existing structures on the rear lots. This application calls for multifamily use greater than 6 units per acre, but less than 8 units per acre. Section 240-240G1B allows for the ZBA to grant a special permit for such a use when the public good will be served, when the business zoned area will not be adversely affected, and when the use permitted is not noxious to multifamily uses. As was mentioned, this was before the planning board recently, and there was a favorable outcome there. Mr. Hurry, is there a copy of the site plan review decision in the file? I'd be happy to submit it if not.
I believe there was.
Yes, there is.
Okay. As I mentioned, this is a split zone lot. The section in the Business Redevelopment District is where the multi-use structure is being proposed, and that's where the businesses would be located. The proposed and existing structures would be completely conforming. They conform as to front, rear, and side yard setbacks as well as lot coverage. This is a case where the public good would be served. The mixed use that we're seeking is within the Business Redevelopment District, and it's for the very purpose for which the Business Redevelopment District was created. We're seeking to redevelop an underutilized, highly visible area and replace it with an attractive, functional building and use. The business zoned area would not be adversely affected. The business and residential units are in an area that, one, both allows that, and 2, promotes it. And mixed-use developments and the uses permitted in the zone would not be noxious to a multifamily use. This section does also meet the standards of 240-216. The site is adequate and suitable for the proposed use. There's very little impact on traffic flow or safety given the already concentrated volume on Main Street. The proposed residences will be improved in appearance and will be in character with other properties in the Business Redevelopment District. This will not adversely impact the visual character of the area, and in fact will improve it dramatically. Proposed development is on the Main Street sewer system. The rear structure would remain on their existing Title V systems. There are adequate utilities servicing the property, and the effect on public services will be minimal. There is no effect on the adequacy of the supply of affordable housing. While the intent is not to make these affordable per se, the rents will fall within the parameters of affordable housing, but there'll be no restriction on them. There was a note in the file which raised an issue with the parking requirements, which I'd like to address. The town engineer noted that retail space calls for 1 space per 200 square feet, while office space calls for 1 space per 250 square feet. We had calculated this based on an office square footage, but had labeled it retail. It's academic in question at this point because we don't know what's going to go in there. We don't have tenants lined up. Even the restaurant, in theory, is a restaurant, only in theory. It's not as though there's a tenant in place at the moment. That being said, if this is in fact retail, there'd be 7 spaces required and 11 for the potential restaurant, bringing the total required to 28 when you factor in the 10 residential. We have offered 24 on site. While we can develop more spots on site, doing so would require the destruction of additional vegetation, which has been expressed to us as something that the neighbors are looking to preserve. So we've sought to avoid that. The zoning bylaw does allow for the ZBA to grant a special permit for the reduction of required spaces under 240-107B when there was shared use of a parking lot with activities, for activities with various peak times. This is a situation where such a special permit may be appropriate for a few reasons. This is in a dense, highly walkable section of town. The potential uses that we're discussing, including residential, office, potentially retail, and potentially restaurant, would likely have different peak times. So we think that the parking being offered with 24 spaces is likely sufficient to address all of these needs in any given time. The developer has made very conscious efforts to listen to and address the concerns of the community, both in response to past applications for this property and for nearby properties. He's reached out to many of the abutters and has taken their concerns into account. We were lucky enough to have many abutters speak in favor of this at the planning board hearing. And one neighbor was kind enough to write a rather glowing editorial. While I realize this doesn't affect your decision, I want to express that there has been a considerable amount of thought and foresight that went into the discussion and development of these plans. We believe that this constitutes a more than suitable development for the site, and it'll provide a benefit both to the neighborhood and to the town. A few comments. I have an additional letter of support that had been submitted to the planning board. I don't think it made its way into the ZBA file, so I would like to submit that to the record. And because town politics and town gossip loves nothing as much as a conspiracy theory, I do want to make it very clear that this has no relation whatsoever to nearby projects. So, based on this, I believe that the board rather could issue, can and should issue a special permit both for the multifamily use and for the parking reduction. I, along with Mr. Costa and Mr. Bogosian, will be glad to address any questions you may have. And one additional note that just came to mind, the engineer did mention about the controlling the drainage, and we're happy to install another catch basin on the site, which would be used to address that.
Is that everything?
That's everything.
Okay. Ed, we'll start with you this time.
I think I'll wait for you.
Okay. Okay. TJ?
Oh, if I get a
Yeah,
pass real quick,
okay.
sorry.
Jerry?
This lot is being merged, correct?
Correct.
That would mean the 2 existing houses have to tie into the sewer system because the lot abuts the sewer system. It's not shown. I think it may have to change.
My understanding was that because they're on the existing Title Vs, they can remain on Title Vs. That's something we'll be happy to discuss with both. I think there's a substantial benefit to tying into the sewer for the developer.
I think you should check with
Sure.
wastewater department.
We'll be
I
happy
think
to do
it's
that.
their call on who ties in.
Okay.
Anything else, Jerry?
In the reduction of the number of parking spaces, any consideration to reserving some for the residents
The intent is that the back lot is used for residents.
only? So the people in the main building would have to walk around back to park if there wasn't anything available.
The intent is that they would park back there as it is, and there is walkways available through the site, and sidewalks, so they'll be able to walk from the parking lot to the front building.
Okay.
Is that it for right now, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay, Ken?
Is there lighting proposed?
Yes, and plans I can actually show you on, it is, on sheet 4, there is a lighting.
Yeah, I see that. I just don't know where it's going.
I'll have Mr. Costa address this question.
Thank you, Mr. Costa, Cape and Islands Engineering. Lighting key on the left identifies areas on the plan. We have some at the walks out near the street. You see some on the side of the buildings, serrated in these areas. Here, 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 here.
Okay, so where do you expect the residents to park?
The thought had been that these 10 spaces would be largely reserved for the residents, and they'd be able to walk. The ones who are up here can walk up here, and the other ones can remain in the back lot.
I don't know how well that's going to work. Is there any thought of sort of reversing the, like if you put the dwelling where the parking area is and the parking area where, well, I guess you can't because the dwelling exists, right?
Mhm.
That's the problem. Okay.
We'd like to preserve those dwellings.
Yeah. You know, you're making your residents who might have groceries or who knows what, lug them.
There's no reason they couldn't
Some
unload
distance.
and move if they needed to, and it's a situation where it's more to preserve their parking spots than anything. So it's not to say that residents couldn't park in the front lot, but I think we'd intend for the back lot to be resident only.
So what is the area that's of the 29,600 square feet, how much is in the business redeveloped?
12,800.
12,800. Is that how you came up with the 3 units, or?
We did the math a while ago, so I'll have to think about that. We, I believe so, because I think if you take the,
So that'd be about 30% of an acre times 8. I get 2.4 units.
let's see. Matt, we're going over this, June, because I'm going to have a calculation issue.
Exact details, it was a while ago, we can just review it and see the calculation.
I'd be happy to submit calculations. My off-the-cuff math leaves something to be desired, so I don't want
Well,
to say
so does
something
mine.
that's not
I agree, we
accurate.
don't want to put you on the spot, but I'd like to see that kind of worked out.
Sure.
And the building height is at
34 feet.
34 feet. Okay. I think, at the moment, that covers my question.
Okay. TJ, did you have any right now?
I do.
Okay.
Attorney Clara, could you just review the screening that was proposed for the residential area during the planning board meeting?
So there is a stockade fence being proposed between this parking lot and the house. There is, there is a stockade fence as well as shrubbery being proposed between the parking lot and this residence to the south.
Thank you. And could you comment on the any sort of potential ventilation systems that would be installed for the potential restaurant that may affect the residential units on the second floor?
I'll openly admit, TJ, that my knowledge of ventilation systems is rather limited. So I don't know that they have speculated as to the type of ventilation system. I think given the fact that this is a mixed-use building, they'd seek to find one that's quiet.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just follow up on that question? I'll give, but I just want to follow up. Is the ventilation system going to be on the roof of the structure? You know where it's going to be sited?
For the record, I'm Mark Bogosian with Longfellow Design Build and the developer in this project. The ventilation would be, referring to the letter that was submitted, appears to be a hood for the kitchens, for the restaurant. A commercial grade hood has all different levels of how what you put in as far as noise, ventilation. So being residential above it, there's some that are extremely quiet, where you have residents above restaurants all the time. So we would be making sure that that's installed to stay quiet, not just for the neighborhood, but also for the tenants above.
Well, I guess that leads to another question. So if you have the ventilation, of course now I can't find the sheet, but if you have the ventilation running up, the kitchen's in the back, so it'll have to run off either the side or the rear of the building, is that the idea? Because you have a bedroom above that.
Correct. All the vents are going to be direct vents, so there'll be no vents coming out of the roof other than potential small vents for a residential style bathroom fan, which you'd never hear or affect the community. So the direct vents would come right outside the side of the building. They'd be very small. This isn't a oversized kitchen or something that would cause any type of adverse noise or problems.
Okay, thank you. Ed, you had some questions?
Do you have any problem if it was conditioned that you had to have parking spaces next to the building for the residents, so they don't have to walk 150 feet?
That provides an issue because the planning board conditioned it that residential parking be at the rear.
You did?
Yes.
It's not a special permit approval.
So what, planning board was just site plan approval? Okay.
Would you have any problem if it was a condition that you park, save spaces behind the building so that the people don't have to walk 150 feet or whatever it is to get to carry their groceries?
Especially if they have kids.
One of the items that I would want to point out that a lot of these residents will be used, after hours of the businesses. So I feel that there'll be ample parking when somebody comes, when they're leaving to work or coming from work.
How about Saturday and Sunday?
Again, some of these businesses and the people that we've already, discussed may not even be open on the weekends. So especially seeing with the diversity of 3 tenants, they're very good amount of parking for the use.
Would you be?
Part of the consideration is that we were trying to limit the amount of traffic further down Nye Road. So by not having commercial, not having the business users coming further down Nye Road, the intent was to limit the traffic, given the concerns the neighborhood has had with that usage in the past. So that's part of what we were considering and trying to develop it this way. Obviously, if we're allowing residents to park in the front lot, what I'll call the front lot, I think that there has to be some of the commercial parking in the rear, which isn't necessarily a problem. It's just kind of running contrary to what we were trying to achieve for the residents, for the neighborhood.
Okay, I just feel strongly that there should be parking spaces next to the building where the residents are.
I just have some questions on that, and I know, Jerry, you have some questions, but just to follow up on that. So would you limit business traffic? So you say, how many parking spaces do you anticipate for residents in the rear? You have
10.
So all 10 would be residential?
Mm-hmm.
So then if you had any spillover from the business parking, those people would have to find another place to park. They wouldn't be directed onto that.
No.
Would there be any signage denoting that as residential?
We'd be happy to include a sign saying, for residential use only. There's nothing to say that the residents couldn't park in the front lot, but we would be limiting the back to the residential so that to preserve, make sure they have spaces.
I have a question.
What about employees?
Yeah, I have like a series. Can I, so the occupancy of the restaurant, what is that?
22 seats. is what we
22
calculated.
seats? Does that includes the bar then?
Mhm.
So that requires,
And that includes outdoors too? You
There-
don't have to take that into consideration?
You know, the outdoors, to the extent there is an outdoor seating, which is, it's shown as a small patio area. To the extent there was outdoor seating, to the extent there's even a restaurant, but to the extent there was outdoor seating for the restaurant, they would need to, you know, take a seat from the inside to move it outside if they wanted to do that.
Okay, so I guess I don't understand. So 22, you're saying occupancy, 22 seats in the restaurant, is that what you said? That doesn't show, that's not in accordance with your plans
Which plans,
showing seats.
we did submit revised plans, so.
Am I looking at the wrong plan?
Whatever we have received, whatever he submitted is what is in the packet.
Yeah, so 2, 3, 4.
April 14th.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 18.
Counting
26.
22.
The reason why they have to take them outside and inside is the liquor license, if they have a liquor license. Because they're only allowed so many on the premise, whether they're inside or outside.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
What's the date of the plan, Kevin? That's all. What are you showing the date of?
Revised date, it says revision 1 originally 4/6. I'm wondering.
Ours,
The restaurant layout, we don't,
No, I think I can answer this question. We revised the plans, and this is, I'll follow my supervision. We did revise the plans for the planning board. I don't know if they came to ZBA at that time.
No, these are what we have. There's
Just
more
for
than
the-
22 seats there, that's for
for the
sure.
record, we don't have a restaurant in mind. We have nobody we're talking to about that. They would do their own, a whole plan.
well, I think the difficulty is you're asking us to approve a special permit, you're asking for a reduction in parking spaces, then when we ask you about the uses that are proposed, you're saying these uses aren't proposed.
Where did you see
And
April 14th?
and so we need to calculate how many spaces you need for the residential use, for the restaurant use, for a retail or office use, and we need to have that information if we're going to reduce parking. So
And
that's,
that's why we're using the number 22.
So,
Yeah.
I can speak to that, Kim.
Yeah.
Because the restaurant would have the most intense parking requirement, which is part of why we thought we would use that for the permitting. If this was retail, it would require 6 parking spaces. If it was, I'm sorry, I reversed it. If it was office, it would require 6 parking spaces. If it was retail, it would require 8 parking spaces, both of which are below the amount that would be required for a restaurant. So
and so how many are required for a 1,500 square foot restaurant? Is
it's
it
based
based
on,
on
it's
seats?
based on seating.
So it's 11.
right.
11 based
For
on 22
seats.
seats.
For 22 seats, it's 11. It's 1 space per 2 seats. Right?
Yes. So that's, the intent there was to look at probably the highest and most intense usage that we would consider permitted at that. And if it were to change, obviously, we understand that also this is subject to a special permit, which is per plan, but coming in to amend a plan is much different than starting from scratch. The issue with permitting a new building is it's tough to get tenants ahead of time.
You said retail is 1 per 200 square feet, or is that office?
250, isn't it?
250. I thought you said 200.
Retail, I believe, is one, it's,
Okay, because what you have on the plan is retail, 1 space per 250 square feet,
well, and that's.
6 spaces, and that's
Oh,
not,
no, it's 1 per 200 for retail. I apologize.
so,
and
but that's not what
That's what I
you're,
addressed in my opening segment when I said that we.
Business is 250.
that-
So
that
this
was-
should
that
say
was
200.
miscalculated, which is what
That's
was.
miscalculated.
Which was raised in the engineer's report.
and so that should actually say 8. Is that correct?
No, it should say office.
Oh, okay, that's another way to solve the problem.
Potato, potato.
Okay. I do have some other questions. That's
Sure.
So the dumpster's screened, I see, by a fence, is that?
Yes, it's shown on the landscape.
Yeah. You know how often that would be emptied? That's dependent upon the uses that we don't know about yet.
Based off of our building on Main Street that has 4 commercial tenants and 4 residential, that's emptied once a week, and it has been no problem. So I would anticipate once a week.
And we can condition hours of pickup?
Yes.
Okay. Any proposed hours of operation for the restaurant that we aren't confirmed as a restaurant?
I would probably say 12 to 12.
12 to 12.
Okay. I understand.
Conceptually.
I'm just thinking about these residents upstairs.
Just thinking the same
We're not
thing.
looking at the nightclub.
Okay. Asphalt parking, was there anything any consideration given to an alternative surface?
Mhm.
And why was that chosen or decided against?
It was considered.
Yeah.
I think the ability to, I think asphalt is cheaper. I think asphalt is more easy, is easier to make changes to when need be. I think the upkeep is lower.
Okay.
If I may, the spot we looked at, the alternative, was in the residential parking area. We looked at grass pavers. There's already a large area of asphalt there. If you look at the existing conditions plan, you see we're actually not expanding the parking too much beyond what's already there. And with the way that the parking was laid out, and considering snow removal, the asphalt surface was the preferred choice.
Okay. Okay, you said rents to fall within parameter of affordable, but they're not actually on the subsidized housing inventory.
Not looking to put them on the subsidized housing inventory only because of the oversight requirements, among
Yeah.
other reasons.
But you wouldn't also want a condition that limits them, the rent, to be tied to any type of...
Not particularly.
It wouldn't count on the,
No,
no, on the housing inventory.
no.
If you condition it affordable, the only way it's going to count is through a
Right,
lip or...
yeah, I understand. I just wanted
in
to
the-
have an
Or other
understanding of when you said it's
subsidizing.
within the parameter of affordable.
The affordable rates for a 2-bedroom apartment in Falmouth are fairly high, actually. Surprisingly so. So what we would probably be looking at for rental rates is below what is the current affordable rate, so to speak.
But it could be market rate if there was a...
I think market rate is within that
Yeah,
within
okay.
that range.
Okay. Proposed lighting, so I saw the proposed lighting that you have on the plan. Any proposed lighting or any thought to provide additional lighting around that rear parking lot? Is that something that can be modified?
So, yes, is the short answer. The longer answer is we also have to weigh that against the residential units, which are right there. So we don't want to flood them with light. So we are looking at some downlighting, some other steps that can be taken to more softly light that, because obviously safety is a factor.
Right, okay. I would like to see some, if it's downlighting or some sort of attractive,
Sure.
not, detrimental to the neighbor, but to provide some sort of level of safety. You said the height is 34 feet, maybe it's been changed from our plans that, I think our plans say 35 feet. So I just wanted a clarification. I got that just off the front, so I didn't, off the front,
Front elevation.
from the front, page. Let me see if I can find
The first page is the from the sun.
the cover page, I took that off of.
Oh, I think that's the height limit. I think.
No, it says propose, it says require 35 feet, propose 35 feet.
So the architect will show a ridge height of 34 feet.
34, okay. I just wanted to clarify. Okay, I think that's all I had.
I
know-
had one other
Yep.
question, comment about the parking, which is, where are the employees
Very good.
going to park?
Theoretically, in the front lot, so to speak.
Because that would be a way that we could address the issue for the residents, is make the employee, I mean, the employees,
My biggest concern was making sure that the residents always have a parking spot available. So that if they came home and things were busy on Main Street, and people had used that parking lot that potentially weren't even in those buildings.
Right.
By limiting the rear lot to residential only, we would be able to have some sort of enforcement ability there. As opposed to in the front lot, it becomes harder to determine who and what is where.
yeah, but you're burdening the residents with having to walk.
Not necessarily, though, because there's no reason they can't park in the front, but they
Well,
have
they're
reserved
certainly going to
spots.
have more likelihood of parking in the front if there's a reserved parking area that says for residents, and the employee parking is in the back.
Well, and if you have parking, say you do have residents, so you have
I
resident
mean, some of
only-
the employees, obviously, the people living in the houses in the back, you want them to park back there, but
But if you have resident-only parking in the back, and then you have residents parking in the business parking, now we're eliminating spaces that might need to be available for the restaurant. So it kind of creates this.
Could we put something in that would say that residents, and I don't know how you enforce it, will not be prohibited from parking in the front?
Yeah, but then that just
Well,
creates the issue that.
I think there should be at least 4 designated for the tenants.
I agree.
Closest to the building, because what if
close
they
to
have
the building.
children
Yeah.
at night? What if
I'm
it's
just
a
trying to-
nurse
I'm
that
just trying to work
picks
around the
up
same
her
issue, too.
child at 10
they wanna
o'clock at
stay
night?
home.
I
during the day.
don't think it's that onerous. You just paint them a different color, you put a signage up, and...
People who go to restaurants anticipate on walking a little bit, especially in the
Well, I think a
downtown
lot of
area.
the traffic here, too, is going to be walking off the street into the
Could have a
restaurant.
residential
So Ken,
sticker.
we'd be happy to have parking in the front, but just as long as at that point, the back is not conditioned only for residential only.
Right.
There has to be a give and take.
I think
That's
you
fair.
want your employees to park back there and the residents of those houses.
At least 4 parking spaces closest to the building for
That's-
the tenants.
sure.
I think that's fair.
That's fair.
That works.
Otherwise, you could put a 2-story parking garage up back.
All right, Ed.
Well,
All right.
rent it out and make money.
I think that was
All right,
tried
Jerry.
previously. So, Ken, any other questions? I know, I saw Jerry waving, so I know he has another question.
Yeah, no, not, but what we're looking at now is office, not retail, except for the restaurant, unless the restaurant doesn't come to pass, and then that becomes retail,
Sure.
right? Something like that.
But I think if.
Well, he has asked for parking reduction, so is that the difference between possibly the two, retail versus office?
Yeah, and I can tell you, I have another building on Main Street. I'm trying to really focus on using the word revitalize that area.
Right.
And I thought a nice small tapas restaurant would be great. I don't have any interest, but I have more interest in retail and office. But we figured come for the most restricted,
Yeah,
come
no.
for what we needed the most
Right.
space for.
So the other idea that in the business redevelopment was shared parking, but the issue there was to have an agreement for shared parking with some adjacent business, and I don't know if that's been explored.
It hasn't yet because we thought that we could contain most of the parking on site. If we did have all office or at that point, if the restaurant was not there, I think that we actually have the required number of spaces available without any sort of reduction.
I'm trying to remember who's next door. Is it the
Johnson Electric.
Johnson Electric? So,
And the thing is, no one's going to be driving here because there's going to be 120 apartments across the street.
maybe.
Yeah,
All
there's
right,
been an
Kevin.
application
It's your
for.
turn now.
Yeah. Okay, so, any other, Jerry, any questions?
One, I think the project looks good architecturally, and it's a great improvement, and I concur with the other members, colleagues that say, and it appears we've resolved the parking situation. You saw the letter about ventilation. I went by that property. The thing that was making the noise, in my opinion, was not a ventilation system. I don't know if...
Do you have a question, Jerry?
Yes, I would like them to go by and look at that, and, because if that's a ventilation system, I'd be surprised.
We'd be happy to do that.
And the other thing is, you wouldn't be opposed to a condition that said you'll check in with the wastewater division as to if you need to tie in.
Of course. I think, there's a substantial benefit, I think, to the developer in tying into the sewer system over the long run. So I think that would be preferable in a lot of ways. I do know that the town has looked to limit the amount of tie-ins to the Main Street Sewer District, though.
But there's also a bylaw that says this.
All right, if you can communicate with
Be happy to- I'll
Amy
contact Amy
Lowell
Lowell.
and
Be happy
submit
to.
something to the file, I think that'll resolve this
Yes.
issue.
Yep.
We can move on.
All right, so Jerry, you're all set?
I'm all set.
You're all set for the moment. TJ, you're all set?
I have a
Okay.
quick question. There was a lot of talk about the proposed building, the two existing buildings in the rear. Are they single family?
They are single-family,
They both
and
are?
the intent is for both tenants to stay, actually.
Okay.
Which is nice.
That's it.
Okay. All right, so we'll take some public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Sir? State your name for the record.
My name is Sal Carbonetto. I live on Nye Road. I'm here with my neighbor Gary Sabins. I'm concerned about the traffic flow in that area. There's a Dunkin' Donuts, which is arguably one of the busiest shops in Main Street. I can tell you it's inconvenient, close to hazardous to access Main Street from Nye or from the other Main Street. I think there needs to be more consideration of traffic flow, and maybe it's a traffic solution to it. But with this building and with other buildings that are being considered, I think it's going to be very problematic, and I'd ask you to somehow, I guess I'm trying to think of how I can model it, and one thing I can tell you is that with the building of that Dunkin' Donuts, traffic has been significantly congested in that area, and these three shops could easily be another Dunkin' Donuts. So I'd ask you to consider some solution to that potential problem.
Sal, what is your address on Nye Road?
56.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Sal? No. Is anyone else here to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Cannon. I live at 536 Main Street. I use that crossing a lot. I am just simply objecting to the reduced special parking permit for that area, as our neighbor has said and has, Ed, I'm sorry, sir, your last name. My concern is for the people who are coming and going with mobility issues. So my concern is that the special permit would not take into account enough ADA compliant parking spots. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they designated here? I didn't see any.
Anyone else here to speak in opposition to this? No? Okay. Kevin, if you want to
So
respond?
I can speak to these concerns.
Okay.
The part of the planning board decision and part of the intent is certainly not to have a class 3 or class 4 restaurant in this site. It would not be a Dunkin' Donuts, it would not be a fast food restaurant. And again, while not a special permit decision, the site plan decision does state that this will be a class 1 and class 2 restaurant.
So we could condition it that way? That would be okay?
It effectively has been in many ways already with the site plan review.
Site plan review doesn't condition anything.
So yes, we'd be happy, yes.
What is class 1 and class 2?
So the town has a matrix for grading restaurants, and depending on the type of use, depending on the quickness, the style of serving, That falls into one of 4 categories. And Class 4 is considered a fast food restaurant, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, things of that nature. That's very much not what we would be looking for in a site like this. One of the other things we talked about with the planning board was for the rear lot, certainly conditioning that to be a left-hand turn only to prevent people from going down Nye Road. That's something that came up at the last hearing for the site.
Right.
And when the neighbors were in many ways concerned about the traffic on Nye Road and Queen Street. So we had talked about conditioning at least the rear lot to be a left-hand turn only.
Okay.
Can they
Yeah.
do that?
Well, we could, yeah, absolutely.
And then
yeah.
the last concern that was raised was the ADA parking, and I believe we have met the ADA requirements for handicap parking for the number of spots we have.
So it's just the one space? Okay. All right. Do you want to have some board discussion right now? Because we heard.
Was that it for all the?
Yeah,
for the
public, yeah, I asked. So I think it makes sense to have some board discussion. I mean, obviously, we talked about things that we'd like to see, or I think the revised plans would be helpful.
Yeah.
And anything else? Or
Yeah,
you
my
wanna have some
calculation
discussion?
of how they got to 3 units, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'd like to see revisions to the lighting plan.
I'd like clear delineation of who parks where.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the point about handicap accessible and ADA considerations is well taken.
Yeah.
We should get more information on that.
And a letter from wastewater division.
I don't know. I say this with all respect to the wastewater. Turnaround for correspondence can be a little bit.
Email may be quicker.
I'll email Amy.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarai.
Yeah, she wrote me back the other day in a day.
So is that everything that we want to see? Does anybody want to talk about this or have any discussions to give them some ideas what we're thinking, since we're going to keep it open?
Well, one of the things that maybe you can explain, or the attorney can explain, how someone on a private lot can dictate which ways someone can go on a two-way street.
It's under special permit that we can.
We do have
We
the-
can
the-
condition
We can.
signage.
Okay, all right, so,
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that condition, because if there's residents, a couple of people living there, so 4 residents park up in the front lot and a couple park in the back, and if they want to go to the beach, why do we want to make them go onto Main Street? I don't think that's fair, but,
I will, not to bring stuff from, but we do have that other proposal across the street. Parking in this area, traffic in this area has recently been analyzed. I understand it's not in this public hearing, but basically it's been said that there's not really a parking issue, or a traffic issue.
well, I don't know if they were talking about Nye Road.
No, not Nye
No,
Road,
but they took
out
into
on Main
consideration
Street.
104 apartments
Yeah.
versus a couple retail.
Yeah, let's
I
not
mean,
mix apples and
you could
oranges.
look
No,
at
I'm not trying to.
You could
but
look
I'm
at the
just-
IT
We
trip generation. I mean, you can get it straight out of the books and submit it.
But we
How about
received
that?
some some testimony just about Dunkin' Donuts, which is off-site, and that kind of implicates the same area. That's the only reason I was bringing it up.
Yeah.
Do you want him to just get some trip generation, some trip generations from the ITE book? Is that what it
Yeah, I
is?
think that would be helpful.
Okay.
But you're not
The-
requesting.
For the use of these retail and dwellings.
The analysis that you're referring to, Kim, is the traffic consultants for this other project across the street.
Right.
That's all. And I'm not
That's the-
saying that that's right. I'm not saying it's
Right.
wrong. I'm just saying it was the same area.
Right.
That's all I was saying, a portion of Main Street.
But
Excuse me. Excuse me. If you would like to speak, you can come up here if you would like to speak. If you have a question.
The analysis was done by the city or by a private concern?
It was.
Both.
Yes, so it was done by a private company on behalf of the developer, and we retained a traffic consultant, the board did, who analyzed it. I'm not suggesting, sir, that it's Nye Road, this intersection specifically, but it is this section of Main Street that they looked at. That's all I was saying. And we've asked now for them to provide trip generation information for this proposed use. So they'll be providing that.
The town doesn't, there's no modeling done within the town, or the traffic department doesn't have a...
Well, that's what the consultants do.
Mhm.
So they're the professionals that...
We don't have a traffic department, other than the police department, if there are accidents and things like that to report on.
We rely on the trip generations for
Okay.
a lot of different issues.
But
the
different
planning
uses
board and
have expected
different
trip
ones.
generation rates. So Dunkin' Donuts would have a very high one, but they're saying they're not going to put that in.
No, but it's 3 businesses, so they could
Okay.
easily equal one Dunkin' Donuts, which would be problematic.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll
we can-
rely on the trip, if it's trip generation information, which I assume will be submitted by
Kevin.
engineer or somebody, or Kevin, or, right.
And I would base it on a class 4 restaurant and 2 retail and 3
Not class
residential.
Class 1 or 2.
Oh,
Sorry.
excuse me, yes, sorry.
So did anybody else have any kind of?
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I'm
6
just,
issues.
let's see, there was some landscaping proposed,
Yeah, just
right?
for board discussion,
Just looking.
if there's anything. So we can provide some guidance, maybe.
Well, he's looking at,
Yep.
I mean, it's almost like once, if that goes to a restaurant, and this is speculation, and if a liquor license is allowed, it seems that the other issues become apparent to the residents up top and in the back.
Lillington.
I mean, not that it's unheard of, I think there's some residential units above some of the restaurants.
There's residential all along Main Street above all
Yeah.
the restaurants.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to think. I
They
guess
know
it's-
what they're
I
doing
mean,
when
yeah,
they move
if they're
in.
choosing to live there. But I think our concern is obviously abutters to the property, who
Right.
own their properties, and we want to protect their interests as well.
And he wants to fit into the neighborhood, so.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think, so my perspective, I think it's a nice project, I think it's well done, I think it is sensitive to the neighborhood. I just think that there could be some tweaks in terms of lighting, parking concerns,
Yeah.
maybe alternative surface, if you wanted to look at it, I would like to see that.
It was considered.
Yeah, but
many of the
maybe
reasons went
not,
over.
but maybe not asphalt, maybe pavers or something like that.
I can speak to that. That
No,
is a-
you're not the applicant.
Okay, in my personal experience, pavers are very difficult to snowplow. I don't know, I mean, we could ask the consultant, but the consultant said that.
We all know that. There are different kinds that have the grass growing in and stuff is what she's talking about. And the board always asks for information on any alternative pervious.
thought.
But
pervious
especially if
parking.
what we're talking about in the back lot is the
Pervious parking.
residents and some employees. You know, residents of those homes and some employees,
Mm-hmm.
they might not need as robust a surface. If you're getting a fair amount of in and out in the lot that's closer to Main Street, that should probably be asphalt.
Right, I agree with that.
So,
You had some concerns about the landscaping, Ken, or?
well, I'm trying to understand the landscaping better. So it's clear that there's quite a bit of it, which is nice
Yeah.
to see. And, I mean, this certainly was part of the intent of the business redevelopment bylaw, was to get this kind of use.
Okay. So it sounds like that's kind of,
So is the little dotted green, is that grass? That?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a grass strip along most of the stretch along Main Street, is what I see. And then the sidewalk.
I know Ms. McDonald was concerned about that in her letter. That's something that is being preserved.
Yeah. And the intent for the patio is that there might be seating if there was in fact a restaurant?
Perhaps a waiting area, potentially some seating. It's kind of an open concept.
And if not, what would that become? Just a patio
Bench,
for?
you know, it could be a, you know, put benches out there for either for the tenants of the commercial buildings or even the residential, you know, just a nice outdoor space with some nice landscaping around it.
And that's is that an existing tree that's there, or is that to be planted?
I don't think there's any trees right there,
Okay.
is there?
So there's a fairly large...
Yeah, the front doesn't,
There's some along Johnson,
yeah.
the property line, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's, yeah, honey locust existing, got it. So this actually larger looking tree that shades the patio is not there yet.
We're working on it. It's a work in progress, Ken.
They're gonna plant it now, and it'll be
Okay.
that tall later.
All right, I got it.
Gotta build it before you plant it.
Thanks.
All right. So anybody else have any comments, or you think concerns will hopefully be addressed that we've raised?
What
Okay.
are you looking at?
So, oh, where's my? We just put another one on June 15th, right?
Right, but I don't think that one's too awfully involved,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Could you get us the information that we requested
June
by June
15th?
15th? Okay. All right, so is there a motion to continue this to June 15th, 6:30 here at Town
I'll
Hall?
make the motion to continue it to June 15th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So that's Ed and TJ, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? So that is unanimous.
It's a regular Thursday.
There is an
right?
enumeration of what they expect to
Yes.
come in with?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We just went through that, and Sri
Poor
wrote
Ed.
it down. and
What?
Kevin, you wrote down what we were
I wrote down, and I'll
Yeah.
confirm with Suri.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
We're just gonna confuse the public more, Kevin, by changing dates and days. It's the Board of Health that's kind of put out, I think. It's their night for meetings down there. Okay,
All right, so now to open meeting. Minutes, May 18th, 2017. Has everybody had a chance to review?
I did.
Yes.
Yep. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to
Make a
approve?
motion to approve.
I'll
Oh, I
second
think
it.
Jer- Okay, so we'll give it to Ed, and Jerry seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Board Administrative Approval, number 3617. Oh, we just approved the minutes. Oh, that's okay.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Moving right
All
on.
right.
So 3617 revised driveway patio at 23 Zell Street.
I don't know if any of you looked at this. It was sitting on in the conference room. If you remember 23 Zell Street, this is what the board had approved, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll open up.
Notice the driveway. These are the abutters that were present and spoke, among others, but this was a raise and reconstruct. This is that Westminster Street that's really actually closed off. But they do access through
Yes.
here. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Right on the water?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what was proposed. There's two houses on this lot. One is accessed through there, the other one can be accessed through here.
It's quite
That's
the
what
house,
you guys
right?
approved. It's quite the house.
Quite the house.
I believe you were. And this is what has been constructed.
There's
They
something
went to
other.
conservation, but they forgot to come to
Oh.
us, so.
Mm.
I contacted the contractor, he contacted Joel.
Proposed parking court.
Right. So basically, it's the same drive-through. You can see it's the same carport. Same carport. And they're putting parking over
I think out front, we were asking if the septic could handle it. Is that where the septic was located? If I'm
We
remembering the
do
right
have Raul here
application.
who can answer your questions. He's with Holmes and McGrath. That's what he's hanging around for. Raul, do you want to explain is it H20? Is it pervious?
Am I remembering the right project?
I believe so.
So the,
So yes, the septic system can handle the parking load.
What's the lot coverage?
so
The total?
it's
The
the
total
same,
was
oh.
20.2, and it's going to 21.4, and it's allowed 40%.
It's a slight reduction.
Um,
Slight increase.
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 But okay, so you used to have a drive going to Zell Street, is that what was happening here?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that's been removed.
Well, this house uses the Zell Street. the
Okay,
existing
all right.
dwelling over there.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if it directs more cars onto Westminster than it would have previously, but,
No, Zell Street has always been used for this house.
okay.
So there's just a carport, no garage,
Correct.
and space for like maybe 4 cars out there?
No, it's like,
6. We've got 4 here and 2 here, but it shows that, at a party time, they
Yes.
can stage quite a...
Right. Party time, there's gonna be some.
well, they have this space too, right?
Excuse me.
They do, and you gotta be able to see it though.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I don't see any problem.
We will
Okay.
need a motion to approve it as revised with
Make a
that
motion
date.
to approve it as
As shown on plans.
dated, whatever it is.
8/5/16 and submitted to us May 16, 2017. A little behind.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so that was Ed and TJ. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None.
Thank you, Raul.
Next is Board Administrative Approval to extend number 8908, approval for 6 months, lot 7H.
I'd like
Pine Bank
to, I'd
Road.
like to increase that to a year. I did speak with Attorney Moynihan today. This is Montori that has been in litigation for about 6 years. So it's in a stay mode,
Yeah,
except for conservation. Conservation wants to now look at it again. Conservation's regulations have changed. So there was a letter submitted by Attorney Moynihan. I spoke with her today and I suggested a year extension based on conservation, in case conservation, they're gonna see them in a month, which is gonna put off construction. So that's why they asked for 6
oh,
months.
so
but
it's out of litigation at this point?
It is-
So now
it
the
just
clock.
recently is out,
Okay, so
yes.
now the clock has started running,
Mhm.
that's the concern, okay. And it has 2 years though, right?
Mhm.
And they still want another year on top
Well,
of that?
it was out of litigation, I have it here. Well, yeah, they have, like, not very long left on their 2 years.
Okay.
And they thought everything was going fine, they got all their plans in order and everything, they came in for sign-offs and conservation
Wants to see it
wants to
again. Okay.
review it again.
Well, it's been 9 years, might as well be 10, right?
They're not changing the plans.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll have to come before us if conservation makes them change
Yeah.
anything, but hopefully it'll get approved as it was.
Okay.
So,
Does anybody want to make that motion?
Yeah, make a motion to extend it to a year.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so that is Ed and TJ. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that's unanimous.
thank you.
Board Administrative Approval, Barnstable County Fairgrounds Wedding, October 7th, 2017, with alcohol.
Right, which is why I didn't administratively approve it, because it does have alcohol. They have changed it to be in the marketplace, as we are doing work on the building where it was originally proposed for. Lot 4, Area C and D, it's private, approximately 180 people.
Pretty big wedding.
They're using a professional catering service, and they will pull a license from the selectmen and notify the police department as well.
Sounds good. Is there a motion to approve that?
Yeah, make a
I'm all
motion.
for weddings.
Okay, so Ed made the motion. Is there a second? Well, Ken, your enthusiasm, is that a second?
Yes.
Okay. So Ed and Ken, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None.
Ed did.
Ed keeps making.
Keep moving.
Ed just, yeah. So I still haven't looked at the procedural rules and policies. I don't know if anybody else has, but we will get to that. Any?
I haven't written the one that I asked the board
Yes.
for.
Okay.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
And then correspondence board updates.
we really haven't had time, and I did send all of you the information that Brian Curry sent me from the Bob and Bob Consultants.
Oh, we gotta review that.
And, yeah, the planning board would like to hear from the
Yeah,
ZBA
okay.
on the construction of the bylaw, what they proposed and everything.
Okay.
And then we'll work on the other things, so if you guys could send me emails on what you think,
Yeah.
so I can get it to the planning board, that would be great.
That's a good reminder. Any future agenda items? I don't think so.
Policies and procedures is about all I have, and
And-
possibly the bylaws that we
The bylaw.
may
Okay.
come up with.
And we have hearing after hearing after hearing coming up, so.
Well,
we'll be
you
back
have
here
a,
next
you
week.
have a tiny reprieve,
Yeah, I guess we do have a
June
couple
5th.
weeks.
and
We
then
June
a couple
5th?
more.
Is there a
So,
reprieve?
sorry about
Yeah,
that. It is what it is.
All right.
We're getting busy.